Welcome to the Capula podcast, Ultimate Exchange. I'm your host, Stephen Lane, OT Cybersecurity Lead at Capula, and I'm joined by my colleague Rakesh Bali, OT Cybersecurity Solutions Manager at Capula. Hi Rakesh, welcome.
Hi Stephen.
In today's brief update, we're talking about how we have simplified our approach to cyber resilience in operational technology with Capula's new 5 domains of industrial cyber resilience. So Rakesh, would you mind just walking us through those 5 domains?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've come up with 5 domain approach, which we believe from our experiences are simple but effective. I think that's the key thing. The 5 domains of industrial cyber resilience are assessing risk, developing a strategy, strengthening defenses, cultivating awareness, and continuously monitoring and improving. So I think collectively, we think that if an organization understands its key assets and its risks, develops a clear strategy, strengthens their defenses, potentially through technology, policies, procedures, and empowers their staff through training and awareness, and then implements continuous improvement as part of an ongoing cycle, then they'll go a long way to lowering their cyber risks and consequently increasing their cyber resilience.
Okay, that's really interesting. So does an organization need to do all of those 5 things, or is it that they could perhaps focus on one particular area that's important to them?
Yeah, I think behind anything, as we know, day by day, there's always a business case and a justification of where the investment needs to go. For an organization, it may be the awareness on people, potentially processes, or the technology. And it's just a case of initially establishing where the effort needs to go into. And once we've done that, or once the organizations picked up where those gaps are, I think that's when you have a program to follow and try and invest into those particular areas.
Yeah, so I think an organization could decide that they're actually going to sort of focus on the awareness side and the people side, for example, within the framework. They don't necessarily have to do the 5, but I think the power in those 5 domains is the fact that actually if you were a completely greenfield site and you went from 1 to 5 and you went through the whole lot, it's a very simple way of becoming extremely cyber resilient.
Yeah, and we know pretty much in our field of work, as much as cybersecurity can sound very technical, I think it's people that fundamentally allow that particular technical footprint to develop.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the key message out of this framework, the thing that I think is the real power is that, yes, you can go through 1 to 5, or you can decide to focus on a particular domain, but it has that flexibility to adapt to different maturity levels, because you never find 2 companies that are exactly the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the really key thing as well is that I think a lot of organizations don't really understand their cyber risks and not doing enough in assessing risks. But I think the power in that is that if you assess your cyber risks, you end up with a clear strategy. And that strategy, which is the second part of our framework, is very much based upon a risk-based approach. I think it's really important that companies consider doing that rather than perhaps taking a compliance-based approach.
Absolutely, and I think things have moved on quite a lot. When I say things, I'm talking about frameworks. I'm talking about standards such as IEC 62443 series, which has a big impact on industry today when it comes to cybersecurity. And turning to structured, standardized requirements, I think is a place to go, and it's a great starting point. As we know, one of the most difficult things for organizations who are going to invest in cybersecurity, we know that it's one of them areas where we think that cyber technical footprints add a lot of cash and capital into projects and programs. But having a framework to follow can allow you to have that kind of initial cost-benefit analysis to try and justify where the spend should be and where the investment brings effective programs. And I think that's quite key to follow those frameworks.
Yeah, and when we were devising this, we talked about a 7-step framework, a 10-step framework. Different,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we sort of thought it through, and I think we came up with this 5-step because I just think there's a lot of power in having a 5-step framework, a 5-step approach to cyber resilience. I just think it really sort of facilitates that conversation.
And that's, I think, is spot on. I mean, when it comes to cybersecurity, one of the things we try and achieve, as we do with our customers, is trying to keep things technical content simple. And that's key. I think trying to establish a co-collaborative effort with the customer, because at the end of the day, the customer knows their assets more than anybody else. And it's just our job to facilitate and embed the security requirements from whichever standard we identify at the early stage, whether it's NCSE CAF that's driving it, or whether it's the IEC 62443 standards that are driving it, and just bring the customer along in a co-collaborative way. I think that's the key.
Yeah, a very key point. Yeah. So I think we'll draw it to a close with that. Right. Thank you very much for your insights, Rakesh. I really appreciate
no
it.
problem
I think
at all.
you brought some really interesting points there. So we've talked about our 5-domain approach, and those 5 domains are assessing risk, developing strategy, strengthening your defenses with sort of like technology, but also as well with policies, cultivating awareness, and then monitoring and improving. And I guess if you are an organization that's not really started your OT cyber journey, what we would do is we'd encourage you to start by understanding your risks and assessing those risks. You can contact us through the Capula website, or you can look us up on LinkedIn. And that brings us today to the end of Capula's brief update and this episode of Ultimate Exchange. Thank you for listening.